The next section that we're going to cover is operations with complex numbers. So adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Adding is pretty simple, combining like terms. So just look at the problem that you have. 4 plus 3i plus 2 plus 5i. So just combine your like terms. 4 plus 2 is 6. 3i plus 5i is 8i. When you go to subtract, the only difference is we need to distribute that negative. So here we have 5 plus 3i, distribute the negative. So we have negative 2 minus 8i. Combining your like terms now, we have 5 and negative 2, which is 3, and 3i minus 8i, which is negative 5i. So that's it with adding and subtracting. Now let's look at multiplying and dividing. The next page. Okay, you're going to FOIL like normal FOIL. So we have 5 times 3, 5 times 4i, 2i times 3, 2i times 4i, so 8i squared. So let's first talk about the I squared. Remember from before that I squared is negative 1. So we have positive 8 times a negative 1, which would be negative 8. So now combining your like terms, we have 15 and negative 8, which is 7, and 20i and 6i, which is 26i. So again, nothing too difficult. The only thing here that you need to do is simplify the I squared. Dividing. Just like when we have radicals in denominators, we can't have i's in denominators. We have to rationalize them. So we do the same thing to rationalize. We multiply by the conjugate. So the conjugate of the denominator is 1 minus 2i. So in the top you're going to FOIL, and in the bottom you're going to FOIL. So in the bottom we get 1 times 1, which is 1. 1 times negative 2i, negative 2i. 2i times 1, so positive 2i. And 2i times 2i, and it's a negative, so minus 4i squared. In the top, 2 minus 4i plus 3i minus 6i squared. Again, we need to remember that I squared is negative 1. So we have 2 and positive 6, because we had a negative 6 times a negative 1. So 2 plus 6 is 8. Negative 4i plus 3i, so negative I. In the denominator, the two middle terms cancel, and they should always cancel because we picked conjugate pairs on purpose so that we wouldn't have an I in the denominator. We have a negative 4 times a negative 1, so this is a positive 4, plus the 1, which is 5. And that's it. So let's go to the next page. There are 4 problems for you to practice here, 1 adding, subtracting, and 2 multiplying. So pause the video and practice those problems, and then come back and check to see if you did them correctly. Okay. looking at these problems, the first one, you have 8 and 3, which add up to your 11, and your negative 1i and your negative 7i, which add up to your negative 8i. Second one, distribute the negative, so it changes it to a plus, and negative 3i. Again, combining your like terms, you have 7 plus 1, which is your 8, and 4i minus 3i, which is 1i. Next, you FOIL. 6 plus 3i plus 10i plus 5i squared. So 5i squared changes to negative 5 because I squared is negative 1. 6 minus 5 is 1. And 3i plus 10i is 13i. And for the next one, 9 times 9, 81. Notice these are conjugate pairs. We get negative 27i and positive 27i, so these cancel each other out. Minus 9i squared. I squared is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 9 is positive 9. 81 plus 9 is 90. So that's your final answer. Okay, go to the next page and we'll talk about division. Oh, we have one more multiplication. So when we have 2 plus 6i quantity squared, remember that that's 2 plus 6i times 2 plus 6i. And then for 6, again, we're going to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator to rationalize the denominator. So pause the video. Try the first 2 problems, and then come back and we'll go over the next 2. So the first one, we FOIL it out. 4 plus 12i plus 12i plus 36i squared. Again, remembering that I squared is negative 1, so positive 36 times negative 1, negative 36. Combine that with the 4 to get the negative 32, plus 24i. In number 6, in the numerator, 12 plus 3i plus 8i plus 2i squared. Again, remembering I squared is negative 1 times 2 is a negative 2. 12 minus 2 is 10. And in the bottom, when I went to FOIL, I knew the 2 middle terms would cancel, so I didn't do that part because they're conjugate pairs. So we get 16 minus I squared. Again, I squared, negative 1. Negative negative 1 is a positive 1. 16 plus 1 is 17. So now we're going to look at number 7 and number 8. The work that I did for 5 and 6 is going to go away in a minute. So if you need to still copy that down, you want to pause the video, finish copying that down before moving forward. Now let's look at number 7 and number 8. So again, these are division, but we need to, they're a little bit more complicated than number 6. In the numerator, we're going to get a common denominator. So think of this as over 1. So we have a common denominator of 7. So the left-hand side doesn't need anything, and the right-hand side needs a 7. There's nothing to do with the denominator part. So we have 1 plus 7i over 7 divided by 5 over I, which is multiplied by I over 5. So notice we did not need to rationalize anything because the I moved up to the numerator. In the denominator, we get 35. In the numerator, you want to distribute the I. So we get 1 times I, which is I. And we get I times 7i, which is 7i squared. I squared becomes negative 1. Negative 1 times 7 is negative 7. So we get negative 7 plus I. Standard form is to write the number, then the I. And the last one, think of this as over 1. Same idea. We have a common denominator of 5. So 1 minus I over 5. Flip the bottom. So what we can do first is rationalize this part here and then multiply by what we have. So we're going to multiply by the conjugate of the denominator, 3 plus 4i. So in the top, you're going to FOIL 1 minus I times 3 plus 4i. In the denominator, you're going to FOIL this. Then after you get your answer, distribute the 5. So pause the video and see what you come up with. Okay, so in the top, you FOIL it out. In the bottom, FOIL that, then multiply by the 5. Again, same thing, remembering that I squared becomes negative 1. And your final answer is 7 plus I over 125. So that's it for now. We'll practice these. Hopefully they'll become more comfortable. The adding, subtracting, not too bad, but we'll spend a little bit more time on the multiplying and dividing. See you in class.